What would you do if you were asked to leave the seat with your name on it, on the very day your son is delivering his valedictory address? Raina Whitaker did not cry. She did not argue. When the two guard soldiers informed her of a last-minute change to the seating plan, she merely clenched the folded program in her hand. In their eyes, she was a modest woman who didn't belong. But in her heart, she carried a secret no one knew. She had once saved a Navy SEAL operator's life, and today, they would return. All right, my dear viewers, get ready for a story that will leave you speechless. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, and leave a comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see people joining us from all around the world. Raina Whitaker arrived nearly an hour before the ceremony was set to begin. She was always early. Years of military service had instilled in her one ironclad habit: never make others wait. Under the bright spring sun, Raina walked through the gates of Desert Vista High School carrying a small bag, wearing low-heeled shoes and an old, faded khaki jacket, its cuffs neatly turned up, and a name patch reading R. Whitaker beginning to fray. She moved slowly, not from fatigue but from a practiced habit of vigilance. Each step on the stone walkway was deliberate, as though she were still patrolling a military base. She found her seat easily, a row of white-covered chairs, name cards clipped to the back of the fourth seat from the right. Raina Whitaker, parent of the valedictorian. She did not smile at the sight of her name, but her strong hand tightened on her bag strap, a silent acknowledgement that she was exactly where she belonged. She sat, arms folded, eyes fixed on the empty stage. A cluster of trees behind cast dappled shade on the grass. Everything was quiet, peaceful, yet she had lived long enough to know that quiet can be an omen. About 10 minutes later, a woman in black carrying a clipboard approached. Her voice was soft, her gaze fleeting. She explained that there had been a last-minute seating change and politely asked Raina to move one row back. Raina rose without protest. She was well acquainted with such adjustments. In the military, they called it situational reassignments. In civilian life, it had another name: being quietly removed. She was guided to the 6th row, no name card, no white drape, no bottle of water, yet still close enough to see the stage. Raina sat, folding the program paper in her hand. She had nothing but a schedule and the conviction that she belonged here. But the shifting did not stop. When a group of parents in silken dresses and bright ties, glittering jewelry around their necks, arrived, Raina was again asked to relinquish her seat. She moved a second time, then a third. Each time, the coordinator's polite smile grew more strained. Finally, she was led to the 11th row beside the backstage area where water coolers, cables, and spare speakers were stored. No one in this corner had a name card or a reserved seat. It was simply where latecomers or the uninvited gathered. Raina sat without a word. Her eyes remained forward, her back straight, her feet planted firmly on the ground. The wind from the eastern plains swept up, tossing the programs in the air. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with expensive perfume from the crowd ahead, creating an almost tangible weight in the air. Here, she was neither honored guest nor part of the celebration. She was an inconvenience to be sidestepped. But Raina did not back down. There was no room for anger in her heart, only a slow-burning exhaustion the color of calloused palms. The nameless weariness of being reminded that, despite her sacrifices, her service, and raising a fine son, she was not permitted a place near the stage. Not for any mistake of her own, but simply because she was not one of them. She had no pedigree, no network, no PTA membership. She was only a discharged soldier, a single mother, a silent shadow at parent gatherings no one remembered. Yet she sat there and she would remain seated for the foreseeable future. For Caleb, her son, who today would stand before hundreds and speak of hope. And though they had pushed her to the back, she knew that from this vantage point, she would see most clearly the truth they always tried so hard to conceal. Raina sat motionless beneath the nameless tree's shade. The breeze lifted the faded hem of her jacket and stirred the programs scattered around her feet. She did not bend to retrieve them. She simply sat, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the distant stage. The distance from her seat to where her son would speak was small, but the emptiness in her chest was bottomless. In the pause between the microphone being adjusted and the click of high heels on the aisle, memories returned unbidden. Years earlier, on another sunny morning, Raina had left Savannah without a word of farewell. The 20-year-old girl could no longer bear the town that forever recalled her father's mistakes and discounted her mother's sacrifices. She enlisted not out of patriotism, but to find a reason to slip away in silence. Okinawa was the first place she ceased being So's daughter and became Sergeant Whitaker. There, in the Navy Logistics Unit, she met Daniela Field Artilleryman from Missouri, whose eyes spoke more than his voice. They fell in love during midnight shifts and emergency drills. When he proposed, she did not hesitate. They married in Hawaiiano white gown, no family, just two soldiers, a promise, and a thin marriage certificate signed in the sea breeze. Then war took him away. Daniel deployed to Mosul, while Raina remained in Okinawa, pregnant. They exchanged letters brief but deeper than any video call. He wrote of his comrades, moonlit patrols through dusty streets, and the wooden house he hoped to build one day. She wrote of the baby she carried, her morning sickness, and her swelling belly week by week. The letters stopped at week 11. The news came by phone. IED, vehicle destroyed, no body recovered. Raina felt as though she stood outside her own body. She did not cry, question, or scream. Only the room's air turned suddenly chill around her. Then came the folded flag. A broken name tag. A death certificate. No funeral, no music, no hand to hold hers. Only silence and the slow unraveling of her own insides each night. She mustered out soon after. She did not return to Georgia. Family condolences only made her feel smaller. She boarded a bus to Albuquerque, a strange city, a strange name, where no one knew who she once was or whom she had lost. Her first apartment was a small rented room on the second floor of a rundown boarding house. No heat, but a window overlooking a patch of wild grass where deer sometimes roamed. She worked night shifts at a convenience store and studied mechanics by day at a veterans center. They did not pry, just handed her a wrench and a broken engine. She learned fast. Mechanical skill was the only thing she felt she could still control. When Caleb was born, she told no one but the nurse. The baby had dark hair, dusky skin, and clenched fists. She named him from Daniel's hurried letter. Calebif, it's a boy. A quiet name but tenacious. The following years formed a steady rhythm, changing diapers, changing oil, studying engineering, reading at night. Raina made few friends, but she had Caleb, a child who always regarded the world as if figuring out how it worked. She taught him never to ask permission to exist, only to be good enough that no one could deny him. Caleb grew up to the smell of engine, smoke, and clanging metal, but he lacked no love. Raina never said, "I love you," every day, but she was present in every packed breakfast, each repaired old car that took him to school, every time she retrieved his bike from the gutter after a storm without complaint. And now, as he prepared to speak as valedictorian, Raina did not expect thanks. She only wanted to be seen to be present, not as a shadow, but as an essential part of her son's achievement. Yet sometimes, even presence can be denied. When Caleb entered first grade, Raina was still juggling 2 jobs, a night shift at a gas station and a short morning shift at the local auto shop. Yet amidst her exhaustion, she found a small opening not for rest, but to give back. She signed up to teach a basic survival skills class at the City Veterans Center. Most students were older veterans, with a few younger people seeking to rebuild their lives after trauma. Raina held no official instructor certification, but she possessed something few did: silent experience and the calm to navigate chaos. She taught by example. No PowerPoints, no long lectures, just how to knot a rope, how to inspect a wound, how to react when communications fail. Her students valued her for her brevet every word hit its mark. Each lesson was a distilled fragment of survival, drawn from a past she seldom mentioned. Raina never spoke of Mosul. She never mentioned the folded flag. Yet everyone sensed she knew things no manual could teach. One early spring afternoon, a woman from the Department of Homeland Security arrived at the Veterans Center. She represented the Federal Civil Defense Program, recruiting candidates for its inaugural New Mexico training cycle. The program was not for active military, but for civilians with practical skills capable of responding to disasters: wildfires, floods, cyber attacks, urban collapse. In theory, people like Raina were only backup candidates. Yet her spotless application, endorsed by 2 senior veterans, was forwarded without her knowledge. When she received the call, Raina nearly thought it a mistake. But 3 weeks later, she stood at the training camp outside Santa Fe. The site was a makeshift array of converted shipping containers on a pegged dirt lot, a sign in bold letters proclaiming, "No heroes, only the prepared." The other trainees towered over her, more agile, with resumes she'd never seen. Ex-firefighters, retired Marines, EMTs, ER nurses. Raina was the only one without a tactical pack or branded gear. She carried only her worn notebook, a pair of faded boots, and a pencil tucked behind her ear. In week 2, they entered mass casualty simulation. A trainee collapsed unexpectedly, no staged event but real distress. A transient cardiac arrest left him breathless and cyanotic. Panic spread. The coordinator called for an ambulance, but Raina was already kneeling before they reached the radio. She snapped her pencil in half, withdrew the lead, fashioned the plastic casing into an improvised airway. As others scrambled for tools, Raina used the small sheath knife at her belt to perform an emergency cricothyrotomy, precise, deep enough, with no wasted motion. The man survived. No brain damage, no special transport needed. When EMS arrived, the crisis was under control. They asked where she learned that. Raina replied, "When your child chokes on candy with no one around, you learn fast." Her answer drew no laughter, yet the 6 SEAL trainees observing had begun to take notice. They didn't question her much in that first week. But gradually, whenever teams formed for simulations, one of the 6 gravitated to Raina's group. They didn't dominate or test her. They simply learned. They asked what her priorities were in the first 10 seconds, how she gauged wind direction, how she assessed a hostage's mindset without words. Raina spoke not from textbooks but from reflex. She described how a lone mother's eyes catch details others miss, like impressions in the dirt or corrosion on a latch. She didn't realize she was teaching, but they knew they were learning. From then on, during every exercise, one of those 6 would trail quietly behind her, no fanfare, no display. But respect, though, silent had taken root. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or sip some water, and stay tuned for the next surprising developments. Comment 1. If you're still here and enjoying the story. The graduation ceremony proceeded in its steady rhythm. Names echoed through the microphone as each student ascended the stage amid polite, applause-brief claps, quick photos, ceremonial smiles. Raina sat there in the 11th row, her program folded and refolded in her hand, her gaze never leaving the stage. She knew Caleb's turn was nearing. His last name began with Wanir, the very end of the list. No one in the crowd glanced back at the woman seated under the tree's shade. No one suspected she could be the valedictorian's mother. And that very fact turned the next moment into a bolt from the blue. The principal adjusted the microphone. His voice rang out. And now, the final student and this year's valedictorian, achieving the highest GPA in the entire class, recipient of full scholarships from 3 universities, described by teachers as calm, humble, and unwavering. Please welcome Caleb Whitaker. Applause swelled. A few whistles. Caleb stepped forward in his green gown, his cap tilted just so. He surveyed the audience and offered a sincere, if restrained, smile. But before the principal could hand him his diploma, something unexpected happened. From the far end of the field, where sunlight slanted across the grass, 6 men appeared. They wore no uniforms, just white shirts, khaki trousers, and boots. They advanced in perfect formation, their steps measured and unhurried, as though marching to an unheard cadence. No one knew who they were. No one stopped them. There was something in their gait that made the guards at the aisle falter in their duties. 6 men. 6 distinct presences, united by a breathtaking calm. They did not mount the stage. They halted midfield. One stepped forward, his hair flecked with gray, his frame solid as carved stone. He did not raise a microphone. Yet his voice carried clearly, low and authoritative. We have come to honor one person. The entire crowd fell silent. Even Caleb froze in mid-step. The man continued, the woman who taught us to fight without ever wielding a weapon, the one without rank, yet possessing absolute authority, and today she is the mother of this valedictorian. He pivoted, pointing to the 11th row. Raina did not rise immediately. She blinked, as if in a dream, but the gaze of those 6 soldiers was fixed on her. Familiar eyes, just as in that old training camp, where she once carved a path through flesh to save a life. The entire field turned toward her. Parents who had ignored her, teachers who had denied her a seat now all fell silent. Even the rustling leaves seemed to pause in deference to her presence. One of the soldiers, the youngest, saluted, head bowed. The next followed with a crisp military salute. The last stepped forward and produced from his jacket a small metal nameplate etched with Advisor R. Whitaker. The gray-flecked soldier handed it to Caleb on the stage, then spoke. Son, you need not speak today. Your mother has already said enough for a lifetime. Caleb looked down toward his mother, now rising quietly from her seat. He did not cry, but his lips trembled. The first applause came from the student section. Then it spread outward. Not ordinary claps, but a communal acknowledgement, a collective repentance. A triumphant chorus for a woman never invited to the center, yet now the center of it all. Raina rose and walked forward, not quickly, not slowly. In the very manner she had lived. Caleb stood motionless on the stage. His green gown was no longer a badge of honor, but a fragile shield hiding the deep breaths rising in his chest. What had just unfolded 6 soldiers, their honors, the collective hush shattered every script he had rehearsed. But instead of panicking, he walked to the microphone, removed the prepared speech from his pocket, and gently refolded it. He lifted his eyes to the audience, teachers, classmates, parents who had clapped for his grades, yet never asked how he got to school or who woke early each winter to change his spark plugs. "I'm sorry," Caleb began, his voice quiet but clear. "I will not read the speech I prepared. It no longer suffices for what needs to be said today." Silence fell. He did not look at the paper or at his mother. He looked to the light reflecting off the principal's glacessa symbol of order and continued, "Who I am today is not because of this school." A whisper rippled somewhere. But Caleb pressed on. "Who I am today thanks to the woman who was pushed out of the front row simply because she didn't wear pearls. She didn't speak with the right tone. She didn't dress the part. Yet she taught me how to rise without stepping on anyone." No one moved. A few eyes flooded. A few hands covered mouths. Caleb went on. "My mother once taught 6 Navy SEALs Resilient Senat with slogans, not with orders, but by example, by living without complaint or blame." His voice remained calm, yet hearts began to race. "Yet today, when I am honored as valedictorian, my mother, the one who never missed a single day of my school life, has to sit under a tree, in the 11th row, behind even the latecomers." An older woman covered her mouth. A man nodded his head. A female student wiped away tears. Caleb looked down at his mother standing quietly, clutching her program as if afraid it might fly away. "I refuse that," he said, then removed his graduation cap neither slowly nor hastily. He stepped down from the stage. His leather shoes echoed on the steps like a measured drumbeat. The crowd parted. No one blocked his path. No one dared. He walked straight to the 11th row, where Raina stood not with her head held high, but never bowed. Caleb reached out his hand. No words. She looked at him for a single, fleeting second, then placed her hand in his. He led his mother forward. The aisle before them widened. All eyes followed. The 6 SEALs stood at attention, right hands saluting in unison as mother and son passed. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their silence was a metal greater than any ribbon. Caleb brought his mother to the front row. Without looking back, without waiting for permission, he pulled out a white-draped chair and placed her downright in the center where the valedictorian's name would shine in the sunlight. The audience fell silent. Then applause began, this time not for a speech, but for the truth finally brought into the light. And no one at Alderd turned away. The town did not change immediately after the ceremony. There were no film crews, no heroes in the shadows banners. Yet change began to seep in like water through soil after a light rain, quietly and persistently. 3 weeks later, the principal emailed all parents to announce a new award. The Whitaker Honor, to recognize students not only for outstanding academic achievements, but also for quiet perseverance, selfless dedication, and unassuming integrity. Beneath the award title appeared a small line, "Inspired by a mother." At first, there were a few hushed whispers. Parents who had once turned away from Raina now whispered at the school gates. Some exchanged uneasy glances as they passed the gas station where she had once worked. Others left small notes by her garage door. "I'm sorry, I didn't see clearly before." No signature. No return address. Raina did not respond. She did not attend the award ceremony. When invited to join the school's honorary advisory board, she politely declined, not out of pride, but simply because she did not need it. Recognition you must ask for can be withdrawn, but a real Citan earned place cannot. From the following year on, at every official school event, a white-covered chair bearing a small brass plaque reading R. Whitaker was placed in the front row. No flowers, no proclamation. Yet that chair never remained empty. Raina returned to her small garage on the town's southern edge, the place where Caleb grew up among old cars and the scent of motor oil. There was no marquee, no website. Yet people came one by one, dropouts, teenagers fresh from reform camps, veterans trying to return to civilian life. They did not come because she was the valedictorian's mother, but because they had heard about a woman who taught car repair as she taught people to fix themselves. She did not call it a classically the engine's open hour. No whiteboard, no grades. Only real work, tightening bolts, changing oil, checking electrical systems. And between those mechanical tasks came short, pointed remarks, never loud. See the leak? It's not a bad car, it's just been overlooked. Bend low enough, and you'll spot what others miss. One autumn afternoon, when the air cooled and the garage smelled faintly of new rubber, a quiet 15-year-old boy who had just moved from Arizona plastic-framed glasses, always keeping to himself, hesitantly asked, "Have you ever regretted choosing to go it alone?" Raina lifted her head from the open engine. She did not answer immediately. Wiping oil from her hands, she looked out through the half-open garage door, where sunlight fell on an old chair behind her, that very chair Caleb had once sat on, reading technical manuals, legs swinging and tapping the brake pedal each time he grew impatient. She smiled, not broadly, but enough to soften her eyes. "I never went alone." Then she turned back to the car and resumed tightening the last loose bolt. "It's just, most people arrived late. There are those who spend a lifetime moving forward, even when no one calls their name. Raina Whitaker does not need a medal to be remembered. She only needs a chair and a chance to be present, just like any other mother." Today's story is not just about a graduation ceremony. It's about what happens when we stop judging others by appearances and begin to see one another with respect. If you have ever felt marginalized or witnessed someone overlooked because they didn't fit the mold, remember, an empty chair today might be an apology left unspoken. Please share this story if it resonates with you. Leave a comment about a quiet woman you know, or someone who taught you something not found in any textbook. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, please hit like, subscribe, and join us, because silence only matters when it is heard.